This is the story of the black hole. You can read along with me in your book. You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear the chimes ring like this. Let's begin now. The explorer ship USS Palomino was speeding home toward Earth. Her weary crew had spent many months in space, searching for planets where humans could live. Although their mission was over, their greatest adventure was about to begin.
Hey gang, welcome to another edition of the Grand Circle Tour podcast. I'll be your captain today, Captain Stan Solo, and joining me are my three favorite co-hosts. Starting off with a very special co-host. He's going to be our Maximilian today, Brandon Muir. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome
Glad to be
aboard.
here.
And also joining us is our very own Vincent, and I call him Vincent because of his V.I.N.CENT collection. Jason, how are you?
Aloha, Stan. I am fantastic. I'm so happy. I finally get to talk about the black hole. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this. And now I have a captive audience.
We've been talking about doing
we are captive, aren't we?
For a long time. And our very own Bob, Justin Clark. Justin, how are you, my friend from the north?
I think technically it's old Bob, but yes, I'm doing fantastic.
Old Bob.
So I'm the beaten down, rusted up version of Vincent. Got it.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. The one that everyone loves. Nobody hates Bob. But, and Vincent, like Maximilian, is kind of like, what is Maximilian? Would he be like the more superior robot, but not superior, or
He's not superior, no.
He's just intimidating.
He's sort of like he would be the Darth Vader to Vincent's R2D2.
Yeah.
There we go.
Compared to Vincent, Maximilian is a blunt Swiss Army knife.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about
Vincent by the end.
Yeah, I want to talk about Vincent's character. I think he was the most interesting character of the lot in this movie.
Okay, I'm sorry. I love Vincent. Vincent's my all-time favorite robot. A disco robot voiced by Roddy McDowell. What more do you need?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the actors. Who was all in this movie? Brandon, do you have that?
I do have some of the main guys. One of my favorite actors, actually a couple of actors I love, Anthony Perkins, and we know him, from Psycho. He's in it, and Robert Forster, who I don't know if you guys know who that is, but if you're a Breaking Bad fan, you know who that is in Breaking Bad.
Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown, yeah. And that's actually where I first heard of him, and I loved him in Jackie Brown. So I was really excited to see those two in it because, it's been quite a while since I watched it for this last time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot these guys were in it. So there's a couple of them that I know. And I'm not sure how big some of the other guys are, but
Ernest Borgnine? Come on, man. He was...
Oh, yeah. Okay, I forgot.
all the kids know McHale's Navy.
Yeah.
So this
Dr.
came out.
Was played by, and I'm going to pronounce this horribly, Yvette Mimieux. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. But she was also Weena in The Time Machine back in 1960.
Oh, yeah.
So she has some sci-fi cred long before she ever gets into this movie.
And Justin, thank you, because I was tiptoeing trying not to have to say her name.
I do have to say, it's like, for kids of 1979, let's bring in Anthony Perkins, the psycho guy, for kids.
Yeah. I know, I was kind of surprised to see that. I was like, wow.
Well, this was Disney's first adult type movie. It was meant like kids enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed it as a kid when it first came out, but it was kind of more, had a PG rating, did it not?
This was the very first movie that Disney created with a PG rating, and it was on purpose. They specifically wanted to go in for like the teenage, the adult sort of audience. I think it's mostly just because they used the word damn and hell a couple of times is how they got the PG rating, but they were deliberately trying to be a little more adult, a little more serious, a little more moving away from that kiddie image that Disney had at the time and kind of still has to some extent.
Which, I'm sorry, sidebar there. It always amazes me too in Sleeping Beauty how they get away with Maleficent dropping the hell bomb as still a G-rated film for 1959.
Well, if you watch like the opening scene of Pollyanna, they have like child nudity. I mean, it's just times change.
Thank God. I'm so excited for this episode, you guys. My voice is busted. Dinner didn't agree with me last night. I spent all night, let's just say, hugging the porcelain god. I haven't spoken all day. I've been drinking hot tea. I've saved my voice for this episode. I don't care if I can't speak. We're going to talk about this movie.
That is awesome. Because I am too.
That's my commitment to this episode.
So it came out in
I had said before we got on the air, I wanted to ask you specifically, Jason, what is it about this movie that you love so much? Because I know this is a movie that you love probably more than all of the rest of us on this episode.
I'm probably the only person who truly loves this movie for the redheaded stepchild it is for Disney. I love everything about this movie, to be honest with you. I love the music by the great John Barry, who, as you guys know, gave us all the James Bond music, James Bond theme. I love the peril that these characters are in, the No Way Out. I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. I have loved this movie since childhood. It was on TV all the time when I was a kid, and it just kind of imprinted on me. And it's been a movie my whole life. I could just toss on anytime and watch.
I'm right there with you, Jason, because I saw it when I was a kid, and it always stuck with me. Like, yeah. I always loved Vincent. I have always loved Maximilian, and it's one of those movies I watched a ton.
Yeah.
Up until I was,
every time it was on.
Yeah, up until I was about 15 or so, and then I took like a 20-year break, but it was really cool to watch it again a couple times the last year or so. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot how great this movie was. And how, I know that we had Star Wars close to the same amount of time, which is one of the reasons why I think maybe it didn't get bigger, because it was competing against that. But
I'll be honest, we said it right before we started. You said it's only a 98-minute movie. I love this movie. And it feels like a 2-hour movie. It's a long movie.
Is that a good thing?
It's a slow movie in the same way everything was, thanks to 2001. That all science fiction had to be slow after that for the longest time.
It was often compared, when I was doing my research, it was often compared to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, basically 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in space. And that movie is also kind of a slow-moving movie as well. I feel like maybe some of that slow pace is very deliberate in trying to evoke the idea of those older films like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
And I personally like the longer pace. I don't need everything to be a music video where it's cut. I love Tarantino like Reservoir Dogs in Pulp Fiction, where he would use the setting as a stage, and characters would come in and out, and you'd have these long drawn scenes like you would if you're going to the theater. So I'm all in on that.
It's nice to have a movie with good character development, which is why I think it's slow at times, but it did great at developing these characters. You really got to know them.
For me, the thing that really draws me to this film in particular is the visuals and the visual effects. We had on this film, we had the great Peter Ellenshaw and his son Harrison Ellenshaw, and they did fantastic work on the backgrounds and the matte paintings, the bridge of the Cygnus that looks a bit more like a Mondrian painting than an actual computer, but it's all gorgeous to look at, every single frame.
And it's gorgeous to look at in a time where the late 70s, everything had a very brutal style to it. There was no elegance to the sci-fi. And so for it to still be brutal, but beautiful to look at is an accomplishment.
Well, and a lot of it was...
Did that make sense? Or am I just
did.
like still hopped up on? Okay.
No, it made perfect sense. In fact, one of the things I learned reading about it is Disney actually like invented, or I guess built, a lot of their own technology to do this movie that wasn't available yet. Even like they even tried to rent some Star Wars equipment that they used in Star Wars, but I guess it was too expensive or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they just developed their own, which ended up being superior to what they used in Star Wars. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, they really put a lot of work in, and they're a lot of work into this movie. Disney really, I mean, it's kind of not a huge known movie, but Disney really put a lot of work into it.
They put a lot of work into this because and this thing, you know, a lot of people think of this as Disney's reaction to Star Wars, which came out in 77, but they had actually been working on this as early as 1974. Mm-hmm. It was originally going to be called Space Station 1. It was more of a disaster movie in space, and they never could quite figure out how to make the whole thing work. And they worked on it. They started pre-production as early as 1976. And it was around that time they eventually brought in the director, Gary Nelson, and what drew him into it was a lot of those visuals that Peter Ellenshaw had put together. A lot of those matte paintings of what turned into the Cygnus and the black hole itself. He was drawn in by those visuals and realized that they were really trying to do something very serious, as opposed to just your average run-of-the-mill Disney film like, say, Cat from Outer Space, which came out the same year.
Now that's another movie I have to watch. I haven't seen that in so many years either. I don't remember if it was any good or not.
We should have a Zoom party and watch that one together.
Okay.
That one is its own trip, I tell you.
But this is, a great looking movie. Like we're saying, I was watching it today with the sound off. And the scenes outside in space when they're just got the strobe light on the all black Cygnus, the amount of detail in those models, it's a lot to look at.
Yeah, like I say, the visuals and the visual effects of this film is just fantastic. I absolutely love it.
Stan, you're so quiet. Sorry.
Do you know if the DVD has any? Because I watched it on Disney Plus, but does it have any of like behind the scenes stuff?
No, there's never been any behind the scenes features on anything. Dang. And I joined the Disney Movie Club last year just to get this because it was a Blu-ray exclusive just for members. I joined the club just to get the Blu-ray.
Oh, and it still didn't have any.
Still didn't have anything.
Dang. Well, that would be cool if someday they open that up a little bit and give us a little peek into it. I'd love to know how they did some of that.
So this came out 2 years after Star Wars, and like Justin said, that they were working in the production of it before Star Wars came out, but they still had that 2-year gap after Star Wars came out till this came out. And they, despite the success of Star Wars and everyone was doing their own Star Wars, every theater company was making their own Star Wars, Disney decided, well, we're going to make it PG. We're going to go for a more higher audience. We're not going to do the fast cuts like Star Wars has. We're going to make it more slower paced, but like 2001 was. And we're going to have robots like Star Wars did, obviously. That I got a feeling that they were written in after. I don't think that the robots in Black Hole were in the original storyline.
We're going to have robots like Star Wars, but better.
Yeah, I think that was kind of their thought process.
Yeah,
and also the classical music score, I think, was a big part of it.
And C-3PO in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and he flies.
Well, I know that, like, Jason, you obviously love Vincent, and I do too. One of the things I love about him is his personality. He had such a great personality that, with his little quotes all the time and, kind of being a smart aleck, it really made him, somebody to love. And maybe that is kind of their reaction to the, C3PO and R2D2.
Well,
it's like, hey,
I wanted to talk about some of his quotes. Like, he had one where he says there are bold pilots and old pilots, but there are no bold old pilots. Was one of his quotes that he had.
Do you know how many times in my life I've quoted Vincent?
He says a wolf that hasn't eaten your sheep is still a wolf. So he really has this personality that comes out. And there's at one point in the movie, I think that the crew, they while they appreciate him, I think they are kind of fed up because they're like, you can't give us any quotes that's going to get us out of this. Like, you got to help us out here, buddy. It was sort of the reaction when he was,
Hey, they could have left him behind in space, but they didn't.
Yeah, one of the ones he had was all sunshine all the time makes a desert.
Yes.
That's one of his quotes.
Well, he's also
and at the one point where he's trying to, they're trying to shove him off to go play with the other robots, and he's like, I don't want to, and they're like, no, go anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We're all going to go for dinner. You go in this lounge/robot game room. And
I hate to sound superior, but I hate the company of other robots.
Yeah, exactly. So he kind of feels like he's above not only people but robots as well.
Well, it's the great Roddy McDowell, and he's just the whole time, he's got like that stiff upper lip when he's doing the lines.
Yeah, and
just being, I know, somewhere between the schoolmaster from or the priest from Bedknobs. He's kind of doing the same delivery there.
And his first time he meets Maximilian, he kind of like, this guy's a chump. His was sort of his idea, his what was it you said he was a Swiss Army knife of, what was it?
It's a blunt Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. It was kind of his attitude.
Doesn't back down. He's like, bring it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wasn't intimidated at all, which I love that. He's like, who's this guy think he is?
Yeah. So he was definitely a character. But as a kid, the one I always associated the most with was Bob.
Yeah, I like Bob too.
Yeah, he was my favorite of the lot.
And I've always felt like both of those robots were almost put in to be kid friendly, to give kids something to hook onto in this whole story, because otherwise there's not that much there. I mean, kids of 1979 aren't going to be going, oh look, it's the Psycho guy. Oh look, it's Ernest Borgnine. You remember him from the Poseidon Adventure? It's.
But you're totally right. I mean, think about this movie. If it didn't have these robots in it, it would be a totally dark, long, slow story.
So to some extent, Vincent is the Jar Jar Binks of his day.
Whoa! No, actually, I like Jar Jar Binks. So.
He was put in just for the kids.
I like Jar Jar. I
like him too.
If you watch all 7 seasons of the Clone Wars,
he was put in for the kids.
Yeah,
he was in what otherwise the kids might not have something to hold on to, and
it's Star Wars. There's everything to hold on to. Come on, George. You didn't need Jar Jar. We talked about this in Phantom 1.
No, I think that's, you hit it on the head. That the kids, I mean, that's who I remember is the robots. That's
absolutely. I remember them too as a kid, just latching onto those two robots. That's what I remembered the most of all of it.
And I was a small kid at that time. I mean, I'm of the age. My childhood sci-fi heroes had feathered hair and bell bottoms. And at that time, they were hard toys to find. So they've always been tough to find. I recently bought all 3 of the robots. These very detailed deluxe, overpriced action figures that are movie accurate. And they came, the box opened them, I opened them up. I looked at my husband and went, I can sadly tell you I've wanted these my whole life.
Now,
Now they're sitting right there with the other Vincents and Bobs.
are they like a custom made thing by somebody, or
No, they're
is
by
it-
Diamond Select, who does really, really nice adult toys for office shelves.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
the other robot that we're introduced to is Star, who's like the gunslinger of the
Yeah.
prototype of all the what do you call them? The guards, I guess, the stormtroopers, for lack of a better term. And so Vincent and Star have a bit of a shootout. And first Bob does, and he kind of gives Bob a little bump to cheat to win. And when it's Vincent goes up against him, Vincent knows the bump is coming and bumps him back before he gets a chance to bump Vincent. But the part that made me go hysterical was watching Star spin his guns. Did you catch that at all?
Yeah.
He's like pretending to spin him like a gunslinger, but all he does is just kind of move his wrists around a little
Yeah. It's like he doesn't really.
What
spin
was
them.
that move?
Or even like turning around to shoot from behind and
Yeah.
some of the other stuff. It's like, you're a robot. Why do you need to practice? Either you can do this or you can't.
And the funny thing is that like none of the other robots could shoot as well as Vincent or Bob or Star. But at the beginning, when they first get onto the main ship, what was the name again?
Cygnus?
I'm not sure who shoots it, but is it a robot that shoots them? But shoots the guns out of their
The
hands.
guns out hands.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's a laser in the sky.
there's a laser in the sky. It's a
yeah.
crack shot.
You should just use the laser in the sky then, because the other robots.
But none of the stormtrooper guys can fire worth a tinker's darn. Like they're bad as
No,
worse than
unlike
the Star Wars
stormtroopers,
guys.
these guys can hit their
defining
targets.
quality of a stormtrooper.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, later on in the shootout scene, we kind of find out that most of these robots actually kind of suck.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, exactly. None of them can hit at all.
Because they have
What is
soup
it with
cans for
robots?
eyes.
Yeah. What is it about robots and the shooting? They just can't do it unless it's at a game. But yeah, I liked how Star at the after the shootout with Vincent, I guess he has like a temper tantrum or whatever, and like
Short circuits.
it's like I love that. It's like it was like a build up, and it just kept on until finally he blew. I was like, dude, that was hilarious.
The other part that I couldn't quite understand was the first two robot guards that get shot. Vincent shoots them. They're smoking. Like after he shoots them, there's smoke coming out of them. And Bob and Vincent, and when they go, the arms go flying, the legs go flying. So they take the pieces of the bodies and they hide them behind some kind of console, and there's smoke coming out of it like crazy. None of the other robots, when they get shot, smoke like that. None of them blow up like that. They just fall whenever they get shot. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch that?
And they were completely like destroyed. Like when they dumped
Oh,
their
yeah.
parts back there. I mean, there was holes in them. They were just destroyed. Yeah, no, I noticed. I was like, well, the others just kind of fell down.
Yeah. Then they went up in the bridge and he shoots them. They just fall off the bridge.
The effects department was like, we can't do this for every single
Dude,
one.
Vincent is gangster.
Yeah. You know, I think Bob was pretty gangster too, though. I mean, he was a little shut. You could tell that he was, scared, but obviously at one point in time, he was a pretty bad robot.
Yeah.
Well, and Bob is the one who basically explains the whole plot to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I do like the way it kind of builds up with you. It starts off that everything is all hunky dory, and this guy's, he mastered basically surfing a black hole. He felt going into it, he's able to keep the gravitational pull exactly where he wants to be. He's obviously a very smart man. And they're kind of in awe with him at the beginning, but slowly they start noticing little things that don't quite make sense.
Oh no, they're not in awe of him from the beginning at all. Only one of them is. One is a smitten.
Well, one of them really is.
One is
Anthony
smitten.
Perkins is totally smitten with him the whole time.
Okay, so
the
it's
rest of
not.
them are just a little.
It's not just me. Everyone else reads that scene as once Anthony Perkins meets him, he's got like hearts in his eyes.
Yeah.
And he's like
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like so well.
He's
and
like,
this is,
I will move my
even
stuff into your
wife
apartment
was watching it
tonight.
with me and was noticing that too, and we're both like, okay, you two just kiss already.
Get a room.
well, it was
You-
20
but
years
you-
without real human contact.
But you do see the buildup of where they start realizing that something's not quite right here. Like they
Yeah.
have all the crew's quarters who have supposed to have evacuated the ship, and all their personal belongings are still there. All their clothing is still there. One of the robots is walking around with a limp, which I mean, C-3PO had a limp also, but it just I guess in this world that's kind of weird. The funeral for one of the robots.
I have to cut this. I must. Yeah, C3PO has a limp wrist.
They have the funeral for the robots, which kind of raised a red flag about like these robots think there's people, and and you kind of start. And I wish they sort of dragged us along a little bit more with that concept rather than Bob just jumping in and saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to tell you guys everything that's going on here," as audience members.
That was one of the things that actually kind of confused me, because when we find out that they're not just robots, they're humans, but
Yeah.
they're depicted like when he took the mask off and he was just like dead, dead-eyed and all that. But at the same time, like they had a funeral for somebody. It was kind of confusing to me, and I don't think it really, the continuity was great with that, because it's like, okay, do these humans still have feelings? Do they still have emotion, or are they completely like emotionless, beings now? Because when you actually see them, they seem to be completely rid of all emotion. So
I don't think they are, because when he does pull off the mask, he almost has an expression of like "just kill me now"
yeah,
type of expression. Like he's more in pain and suffering than anything. Jason?
Okay, so this is how I've always read it since I was a child, was that the funeral is a Reinhardt thing, that these people are brain dead basically, and the mask or whatever, there's some kind of remote control to make them do their job. But because Reinhardt is this really sick, twisted dude who's playing God, he still allows them to have funerals even though they're dead already.
Yeah,
it's like
that makes
the
sense.
one time they allow him to do something.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird him playing God rituals he gives them.
Yeah, all throughout this film, there's a very forced metaphor of heaven and hell, and I've never quite figured out what we're supposed to get from that metaphor, but it is there nonetheless. I mean, even when they first come across the black hole, the Ernest Borgnine character talks about it being like something out of Dante's Inferno, and Dante's Inferno doesn't have a black hole. I mean, the only thing similar is that they're both round. So I was never quite clear where they're going with this metaphor, but it is clearly there, especially when you get to the ending.
Well, he even says you expect to see some guy dressed in red carrying a pitchfork when he looks at the black hole. Like, talk about like extremely obvious foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Well, not to like skip to the end, but what do you guys think about that? Because again, I've always read this scene from early childhood to now as where basically when Reinhardt dies and goes to hell and is stuck in the Max costume for his crimes and has to spend eternity on a cliff in fire in a hot metal suit.
Or as the ruler of hell. Because
That's kind of the
ending up on the
Oh, is that how you got it?
that's how I depicted it is he wasn't so much more of a god as he was a devil all along, and this was kind of like his destiny.
Next step to devilhood?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I didn't take it
there's
as
definitely a metaphor there for hell, and both Maximilian and Reinhardt are red throughout. I mean, Maximilian is red, Reinhardt is wearing red, and then they merge together, but that merged figure seems to be kind of in charge, in a position of power in this what really looks like the fire and brimstone version of hell at the end.
Because there are
Is that a
Fantasia-like
punishment, or is
demons
it just his
dancing around.
destiny?
Because there's Fantasia-like demons dancing around him in the background.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like he's
Which
over.
look very much like the crew, that the dead crew members.
Because I always thought it was his punishment was because you turned people into robots, then you will spend forever in this robot armor, forgotten on this cliff in hell.
That's
I
kind of
think
what I
there's
took.
a lot
from
of
it.
interpretations, but yeah, it's.
I have
like
read
said,
way
we
too much in this
figured out
movie.
what they were going for.
Well, I read that they purposely left it kind of ambiguous at the end for you to interpret.
I honestly,
Yeah,
I think that there was some drugs left over in the '60s that the traders were
Hey,
still
dude,
partaking
we
in.
still had Quaaludes at this time.
Well, in the research I had done too, that as I understand it, the script itself basically says, and they went through the black hole. And so all of that was kind of pulled together after the fact in a lot of ways. Not only do they, the weirdness that we got, there was also at one point going to be a scene that involved the creation of Adam from Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. They had even gone so far as to get permission from the Vatican. I think it was Peter Ellenshaw actually went to Rome to video in the Sistine Chapel to get footage of that. And the idea was that there was going to be a scene where we zoomed in on Dr. McCrae's eye and then zoomed back out from Adam in the creation of Adam. And it was actually some of the Disney executives that kind of at the last minute got cold feet and went, maybe this is a little too religious.
That would have been way cool, though. That would have been a very cool ending.
Yeah.
To show, like, okay, the black hole does defy time. And
so they, as weird as what we got was, they had some other ideas that were even a little more out there.
In the novelization, because yes, of course I have it and have read it several times. When the four of them get to the black hole, the book version ends with their four consciousnesses have combined into one, and now they get to just kind of free float the universe as one being.
really, I have to read that. That sounds kind of cool.
That's interesting. So let me ask you this: have you read the comic book series?
I have never been able to track them down. I look for them, but I can never find a good one.
Okay, because there was I had back in the day, I had like the first two basically, which was the movie itself. But there was I think it only lasted about two issues past that.
I have the one where they went to the dinosaur planet.
They go off into a new universe reality on the other side of the black hole, and they were going to be exploring that for the rest of the comic book series run. And it only lasted a couple of issues, but
yeah, I keep hoping that'll pop up on my Kindle one of these days.
I found it online once, just on like someone's blog. They had posted like some images of it, and that's how I found it. But so I have seen them, but I've never found like
I look for them on eBay and I never find a good one. They're always damaged somehow because I actually want to take it and read it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a comic book version of that. I think
I have the first two issues as well. I believe I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah,
maybe
after the
like
first two, it was changed to the cover at least was changed to Beyond the Black Hole.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, does this all happen in one day? This whole movie
Kind of feels like it.
I know because they find a black hole, they discover this ship, they kind of try to get closer to it, then they get sort of sucked into the black hole. They've used up they damaged their ship escaping
It's
the
like
black
an
hole.
8-hour
They end up
workday
landing.
max.
What's that?
It's like an 8-hour workday for them.
Well, that's just it. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this was a very spectacular day, because this is the only day that he can actually, he said, could go into the black hole. This is like the perfect day for it. And it's also the day that these guys come. And it's also the day that this random meteor shower that no one saw coming. You would think they'd be watching for something like that just in case.
Yeah, how do
It's
they
the
not
same
see
day
that?
This random meteor shower just happened to come and smash into the ship. And it's also the same day that the probe comes back. So it was a very busy day after 20 years of basically nothingness, other than converting these.
You know how it is. It never rains. It pours. So, of course, it's all going to go down in one day.
I thought, wow, what are the odds of this? Like, that's crazy. So that what was my point with all that? I just thought that it was that happens in movies. That's just movie magic, is what it comes down to.
That is definitely how things happen in movies. Everything happens all at once. But it's like I agree with you that the editing seems to suggest that it was like basically the course of one day.
Yep.
Yeah, and they have like dinner. So
the Empire Strikes Back also just suggests. See, my voice is done. That's how much I love this movie. I'm here. The Empire Strikes Back suggests one day, but we really don't know. It's kind of ambiguous.
Well, no, Empire would have been over several days.
Well, the thing is like the stuff in Cloud City kind of seems to be like over one day, but it's intercut with Luke's on Dagobah that seems like it's taking place over a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. But they start and end at the same time.
Okay, so we really don't just follow the Falcon at all, except for this one little bit. We're really just following Luke's adventure while they're out there in space somewhere for a week.
So it's like a little ambiguous, but
yeah. I lost my train of thought now.
That's what we're here for, Stan.
It's our quarantine series. We're all cracking up.
The other thing too I thought was interesting was, where is he getting all this material from to make these robes and to make these face masks for the androids? I mean, he's on this ship. He's nowhere. It's not like as if there's a mining colony or they're making. Maybe he has a 3D printer. Perhaps
if you know you're not coming back, you're going to stock at least one Joanne's fabric store in cargo. You never know what's going to pop up.
Well, then he could have a 3D printer or something to make fabric with or something. But I think
it's one of those things. I think we just have to just.
He's a showman. He came on that ship with like 10,000 hooded robes.
He has a whole storage department in the back somewhere.
Well, and not only that, like these guys, like they need the parts for their ship, and they go, okay, we need an A14 spark plug and a receptacle. and this. He goes, yeah, I got those. I got everything on this ship, man.
If you know you're not coming back, bring everything you think you're going to need.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if he went there knowing he wasn't returning.
I was like, dude, you've been to Disney World with me. You've seen what's in my bag. Everything. I'm like Mary Poppins down there.
Oh man, I got a silver. I got tweezers.
Pretty much. I got a hang now. Here, I got something for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just very, very, very interesting. As I'm watching this, my mind's kind of wandering, thinking about different things, and those are two of the thoughts that came up. Was it being, wow, this was a busy day for them, and then at the end, so they're on this little probe ship, and they go through the black hole. That's their understanding, and they're fine. Or did they escape the black hole? I couldn't quite figure that out.
So I think both in as Jason mentions, for the novelization, for the comic book, and for the movie itself, it seems like they go through, where Reinhardt merges with Maximilian and ends up in whatever hellscape that is that he's in. They follow the angel through the glass crystal archway and end up on the other side of the black hole.
So in this
they're in heaven.
probe ship, we have Kate, Alex, and Dan, and Vincent. I believe we're
Because
the
old
four
Bob
survivors.
sacrificed himself for his
Right.
friends.
Yes. So who do they eat first? Was my question. Do they cut off Kate's arm first? How does that work?
Well, then eventually it's only going to be Vincent. So
I figure it's packed with snacks in there.
Well, it was an unmanned probe that he had.
Just in case, there's got to be at least a couple coolers. I figure there's got to be a replicator like Star Trek in there.
That's where they got all the robes and all the other costumes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Man, that's got to smell after a while, though. That little probe that they were in.
what corner are we going in?
Well, in the comic books, they immediately found another planet that they could land on and find some food and such. So
The Black Hole 2, the search for fresh air.
Yeah, no kidding. But I already know that Brandon and Jason, they love this movie. I'm guessing you're going to give it like, what, a 9 out of 10 or something? Where are you going?
I'm going to give it a 25 out of 4. This movie can do no wrong with me.
Yeah, I definitely give it like a 9. The only reason why I wouldn't give it like a 10, I think, is because of some of the things that we talked about, that just didn't quite add up to me. That I think, there were some holes that they could have done a little bit better filling in. But, every movie's like that.
Brandon, you're wrong. It's a 25 out of 4.
Okay.
Well, we didn't even talk about the first 2.5 minutes.
You mean the darkness with good music?
Yeah.
Yes, we should warn our viewers, our listeners, that if they're going to watch this, the first couple of minutes is it's complete and total blackness. It's not your TV.
Don't tell them.
It's not a problem with your Roku player. It really is that way. It's just complete blackness with some music. That's how this thing.
Don't tell them. Let it be a mystery.
So did you guys fast forward at all for that first 2.5 minutes? To be honest.
Oh yeah.
No.
You didn't?
Last time I did. Because I forgot that it was black the first couple minutes. How I forgot about that from when I was a kid, I don't remember. But yeah, I was like, what the heck? And then that's when I read about the Overture, that it was one of the last movies.
See, I don't remember that in the theater at all. That 2.5 minutes of blackness. That completely. I don't remember much about this movie in the theater, to be honest. I didn't remember the ending at all. The first time I rewatched it as an adult. And I had the comic books, and I had read though I'm sure I had the comic books. I had some of the toys, and I did like the movie a lot. I rented it a couple of times as a kid on VHS or whatever. But then when I bought the DVD, like Jason did from the movie club, and I rewatched it, I was like, this is not the movie I remember at all. Like this isn't even
better than you remember.
What I remember. It was a lot slower than I remember. I remember it being a more faster pace as a kid, and the beginning 2-minute thing, and the ending were completely gone from my memory at all.
Did you remember?
How do you forget that ending?
But do you remember the meteorite in the ship?
Oh yeah, because that's kind of like the promotional still that you see a lot of. And I remember the shootout that they had. I remember the robots. I remember those. I remember the main guy,
Reinhardt.
Yes, I remember Reinhardt having a cape, but he doesn't have a cape. It sort of looks like a cape. He has like a lab coat that's really long.
Dude, he's got a groovy leisure suit in Satan red.
Well, no. When we first meet him, he has a really long lab coat that almost looks like he's wearing a cape. So, Justin, what are you giving this out of 10?
You know, I will give it at least an 8 out of 10. It's I absolutely love the visuals. I love the ambition of it. It's trying very hard to be, very serious adult science fiction in an era where that wasn't as common. And it does very well in a lot of ways, but it also falls down on some of its actual science. Its pacing, I feel, is a little too slow, even looking at it as being from 1979, 40 years ago now. So there's some good and some bad, and I overall I really enjoy it. Though I would definitely give it at least an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
You know what? You kind of talked me into it because I was going to give it a 6. But now that you talk about the visuals, yes, the visuals were very well done. Absolutely, I agree with that. The slower pace, the what the heck ending, and that 2.5-minute beginning, I have to go with the 7. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it an awful lot. And I love it that it's only 98 minutes because I sure as heck wouldn't want it any longer than that. So if you're looking for a really good mediocre movie, this is the movie for you.
Stan, I think Justin gave the perfect review of it because I love this movie. I know it's got faults, but they really tried. Everyone in this movie really tried their hardest. You can't give them credit for not trying.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. No,
this is probably the most expensive B movie ever made.
Probably.
Well, yeah, it had a budget of what, 20 million?
I think
it's a really
$20 million
good
for the
B-movie.
movie and another $6 million for merchandising.
And it brought back 32 million gross worldwide. So it wasn't a huge success, but at least it didn't lose money. I mean, there's movies that actually, lose money, and it was a very expensive movie for Disney at the time. Like that,
it was the most expensive movie for Disney that they had ever made at the time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
And speaking of the merchandising, fun fact: I can be bribed with black hole merchandise.
Have to remember that.
We know.
I am now that I know that there is merchandise out there for it. I'm going to keep my eyes open now.
They don't make it often. It's when they do, I snag it up. It's like every 10 years they'll make one thing.
Yeah, I thought Muppet merchandise was hard to get, but Black Hole I think has it beat.
Just today, for fun on eBay, someone had the original Black Bob and Maximilian figures, brand new out of the package, $2,800 for the pair.
Oh my gosh!
Oh wow! Oh wow! Yeah, they're rare. They're rare, that's for sure.
Hearing things like that makes
final
me
thoughts,
so upset
guys?
I destroyed my toys.
Brandon, any final thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I thought it. I mean, like we already talked about, I think it was a great movie. I'm just glad that we were able to talk about it, and I meet other people who've actually seen it, and like Jason, who actually likes it. Because for years, I would ask people like, "Do you remember that movie Black Hole that Disney did? It was a really, this is before online streaming, so it was like impossible to find sometimes, and so many people never heard of it." And I'm just like, wow, this movie was like huge. I thought.
They didn't have KTLA Channel 5.
Yeah.
How about you, Justin?
As a fan of science fiction in general, I love this movie. Like I say, for the ambition, for the fact that it is a Disney film, it has so much going for it, and it also has a few fundamental flaws that keep it from being like one of the greatest movies of all time. But it is enjoyable to watch. I think if you're at all interested in science fiction in general, you should see this film, if only for completeness sake. It's classic enough in its own right. And I also want to say, this is a good movie that would be good for riffing. I mean, someone like Riff Tracks should totally take this on, because there's enough material to work with there. And
it would be.
And yet it's watchable enough in its own right.
Okay. Jason?
I have two final thoughts I want to leave everyone with. The first is, had this movie done well, and had Disney not gotten in bed with George Lucas, this would have been Star Tours.
Yeah.
There were plans on the books that now there was plans. This was going to be the simulator ride, but then they met Lucas, and we know what happened next.
Yeah, speaking
I
of
can't see
that,
that.
I saw that at one point the director of Tron Legacy had been working on doing a remake of The Black Hole, and that basically got scrapped because they bought Lucasfilm and decided to do Star Wars movies instead. So
Wow.
we didn't get a
Yeah.
remake of this because
Thank God.
which
Just
is
Well,
a little ironic considering the success of Star Wars is why we got this in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to see a remake of this. I think it'd be kind of cool. But Jason doesn't want to, though. So.
no. I've decided for everybody that it will. No. My final thought is, if you enjoyed this, there are 2 episodes of Doctor Who Series 2 / Season 28 called The Impossible Pit and the Satan Planet. It's this movie is very, very much the influence from those 2 episodes, where it's Doctor Who in the black hole, and then he defeats Satan literally.
Cool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the David Tennant era, right?
Yeah, it was David Tennant's first season.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of remember that one. That I'm also a Doctor Who fan, so.
I knew we were going to get along famously.
I haven't really seen many, so I don't know.
You're fired.
I know.
Bring your wife back.
I will actually make it a duty now to watch Doctor Who because of that, though, Jason. So you may have created a fan today, man.
That is,
And for myself, I'm just glad that we were able to finally sit down and talk about this movie, because it is something that we discussed probably for a better half of a year and a half now, with Jason and Brandon, and now Justin being the sci-fi fan that he is. I'm kind of glad we waited to have Justin to join us.
thank you, Stan.
So we made it happen. We got to finally sit down and talk about the black hole. And I'm excited. I'm excited to do more Disney Plus movie shows.
And really quick, Stan, if passengers, if you haven't seen it before, if we made you want to watch it, let us know. Hashtag tweet us, whatever. Let us know you watched this movie because of us. And whether you're on my side and you think it's wonderful or you're wrong, just let us know.
Well,
Just make sure you let him know.
Let us know what you think of this film, because there are so many interpretations, and it is an interesting film. There's a lot of different things you can take from this. So I would be interested in hearing what you guys have to say about it.
There you go. Justin stole my line. Tell us what you think of the movie. Did you watch the movie first and then listen to this episode? Or did you listen to this adventure first and watch the movie? That's the other thing I'm curious about. I can't picture anybody listening to this entire show without having seen the movie first, honestly. Because we spoiled the crap out of it.
You never know.
So with that, Ken, take it away.
If you would like to keep the adventure going after the show, be sure to like our Facebook friends page, Grand Circle Tour Magical Ticket Holders. While on Facebook, like our group page, Grand Circle Tour. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Grand Circle Tour Podcast, as well as Instagram, GCT Podcast, and our YouTube channel, Grand Circle Tour. If you would like to send us a message, you can email us at gctpodcast@gmail.com. T-shirts and other fun merchandise can be found at tpublic.com. Simply search Grand Circle Tour Podcast. If you enjoyed your adventure, leave us a review on Apple Podcast. Only one rule, make it good. Thank you for riding with us, and welcome home.
There is an inexorable force in the cosmos where time and space converge. A place beyond man's vision, but not his reach. It is the most mysterious and awesome point in the universe, where the here and now may be forever.
On my ship, you ask.
It is unavoidable. Moving through space, swallowing everything in its path. Radio waves, light,
Are you programmed to speak?
even planets and stars. Go, go.
Fire thrusters. That madman is headed straight for the black hole. What'll we do? We wait. We got you. We got you.
Hurry.
It's all right. It's all right. It's okay.
Now,
Gravity's at maximum, Dan.
My God, I think it's got us.
man is about to enter
We got a break here, too.
the black hole. A journey that begins where everything ends.